Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to be doing the ultimate upgrade on my PlayStation 5 where I move the expanded storage available to the system up to 4 terabytes. On top of that, I decided to pick out one of the most ridiculous looking heat sinks that I could attach to that NVMe drive, and we're going to do that entire install here today. So if you guys enjoy the video, make sure you like it and subscribe if you're new. So why exactly am I installing a 4 terabyte drive inside of this system? Well, I had already put a 1 terabyte drive inside of it, did an entire video showing the install for it, and it's been fine since then. But I have found myself deleting stuff, re-downloading all of this, even with the 1 terabyte drive. Now, I do play a lot of different games across the board, and I have noticed that many of them 70, 80, 90 gigabytes. And with Sony's current push towards live service titles that will indeed, I'm sure, have plenty of updates, patches, and ongoing support, I have a feeling a lot of people's PlayStation 5 internal storage coming in at 661 gigabytes. It's going to be filling up pretty quickly. And then on top of that, I thought it'd be interesting to go with more of a no-name or less common brand, not like a Samsung or like we see with Western Digital. No, I picked Nemix. At least I think that's how you pronounce it. But the thing that caught my eye, and I'm sure many people, because they were asking me about it, is that the price for a 4 terabyte was on sale for $250. 4 terabytes, like I mentioned about 2 years ago, was somewhere around $500 to $600. And now seeing it at $250, is it too good to be true? So here's the Nemix RAM Nemesis series. This is the M2 2280 NVMe SSD, and it is specifically marked for the PlayStation 5. So it, according to them, has the correct speed. I do also want to point out that this does have a 2 terabyte and a 1 terabyte variant. The 2 terabyte is $150, which, once again, based on prices when I was shopping around with the old 1 terabyte that I have, is pretty good. Anyway, there's not a lot to really show looking around the NVMe drive, but if we take a look at the heatsink that I have here from Elecgear, that's a whole nother story. This is a P5 NVMe heatsink with ELP5C, I believe, as the model, and yeah, it's like a solid chunk of aluminum with a heat pipe that's sort of shaped to fit inside of that chamber where the NVMe drive is going to go inside of the PlayStation 5. And in fact, it's going to replace the entire door. And I've long thought that that'd be a good idea for Sony to have approached this with, where the door itself actually connects to that NVMe drive and helps to cool it, rather than suggest certain heights and dimensions for heat sinks, which most of the cheap ones on Amazon work fine. In fact, that's what the 980 Pro that I've had installed in this PS5 has been using. No problems at all. But still, for Sony to go with something that's more straightforward across the board, and in fact, the one they have there now, probably with the right thickness of padding, would work. But either way, unboxing the NVMe heatsink, and it is as ridiculous as it looks on the outside packaging. Again, just a large chunk of aluminum here, and I mean, it feels like it's high quality. In fact, even the packaging is closed cell foam, comes with the Phillips head screwdriver to help install it, and it even comes with the screw and also the washers and everything there to mount it. So there's a lot of thought going in, at least, to installing this correctly, with different size thermal pads and even sort of a cushion that goes under the NVMe drive inside of the PS5 to try to get rid of any warping that could happen down the road. Now, installing the NVMe drive, it's very easy. Again, I made an entire video showcasing this before, but after you remove the panel on your PS5, if it's a disc-based unit, it's the panel that houses the disc itself with that slot. You remove it, you'll then see the panel here with a screw with the PlayStation shapes on it. You unscrew that, you remove this cover, and you'll be looking directly at either a blank spot if you don't have any kind of NVMe drive installed, or the one you already put in before. One Phillips head screw is removed, and then you can just pop the old NVMe drive out. Keep in mind there is a spacer where that screw is, so you do not want to lose that, as that's basically what the NVMe drive screws into and sort of stops it from crashing all the way into the board. Now, for this Nemix RAM, I am going to use the screws and the washers and all of this that was provided here from the P5 NVMe heatsink with Elecgear, but If you just have to install this with a basic Amazon heatsink, which is what I'd recommend, just use the standard spacer that Sony had already pre-installed. In this case, I put the foam padding underneath of it, then slid in and installed the Nemix RAM, keeping an eye on how it's slotted. At the bottom, you'll see there's one much larger side and then one small side with the notch. Just make sure that lines up completely. It won't fit in upside down or anything, but this should be a very easy slot in and drop down. You shouldn't be putting any serious pressure on it. So again, just double check how you have that keyed up, screw it in, and you'll be good to go. If you want to install a heatsink, and I do recommend doing this, check out that first video I had put out, because I did go over using a basic $8 heatsink from Amazon. In this case, though, I am going to put the thermal pad down on top of this and then just screw in this big Elecgear heatsink. And I gotta admit, it looks pretty good. It's form-fitting, and I guess if this Nemix RAM really wants to put off a bunch of heat, should have that covered no problem. Is this overkill for an NVMe drive? Yes, look at it. This is ridiculous. But I figured, hey, we'll go to the next level. We're already putting a 4 terabyte drive in. Why not? At this point, I just have to put the side panel back on the PlayStation 5 and allow the system to format that M2 drive. And the speed that it gives me for read is 5,647 megabytes per second, which is actually right in line with the same speed that I got from the 980 Pro. Now, testing this drive isn't going to be easy necessarily, because I feel like at this point, if it passes the PlayStation 5's initial speed test, it'll be good to go to play with any of the PS5 exclusive games. I've seen people even do tests with lower speeds with different NVMe drives, and it seemed to work all right. The thing that you want to really keep in mind is the overall longevity and durability of these drives. And unfortunately, the only way to test this is use it for an extended period of time. When I say extended, I mean potentially years. So what I did do, though, just to make sure everything was working okay, I copied over everything that I had currently installed on the internal storage of the PlayStation 5, which came out to just over 290 gigabytes, just moving it over to that 4 terabyte drive, which, by the way, seeing that number there on the extended storage, it's pretty ridiculous looking, right? But moving 290 gigabytes or so only took a couple of minutes, so everything here looks pretty good. And then final test, I decided to just play a game off of it, have Dragon Ball Z Kakarot installed, so just firing that up once again. No problems here. I had played through this on the Xbox. I ran into some weird issues when it came to the upgrade, so I said, you know what? I'll just restart and play it all the way through again, this time on the PlayStation 5, and it looks like I'll be able to do that off of this Nemix drive. Now, just double checking that Nemix drive that I'm using here seems to fall in price during any major sales to that $250 mark, but otherwise sits around $350. But I will admit, I don't know if a lot of people are going to necessarily need 4 terabytes. In fact, many people are probably just looking to double even their current storage, which you can do with a 1 terabyte for, at this point, $100. Or you can even go up to the 2 terabyte models that I see across the board, with sales hitting Western Digital and Samsung and others for $150 to $160. It's significantly improved over what we had at launch for the PlayStation 5, and then even after they dropped that initial beta firmware, prices were still pretty far up there. Now, much more manageable, and that's just kind of the effect of what we have with the open market. See, this has turned out to be the correct choice and actually advantage for Sony, where Microsoft stuck with their proprietary format through those expandable memory cards, just either stay flat or even feel like they've gone up a little bit. And that has to do mostly with the entire market around it just falling in price. So I think for the most part, getting a 2 terabyte drive for the PS5 seems to be the sweet spot now with pricing, and it's just, they're much more readily available. It's easy to do, and a heatsink as basic as one of the $8 ones off of Amazon will work fine. But let me know what you guys think about this down below, especially if you're someone who did upgrade to a 4 terabyte drive. How's it worked out for you, and did you manage to fill it up? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.